The time is now 6:31. The Wednesday, September 13th, 2017 board workshop at Pitcher Elementary will now come to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Ms. Manser? Here. Ms. Wolfsey?
Here.
Ms. Lewis? Here. Mr. Oates?
Present.
Mr. Fierro?
Yes, here.
Mr. Evans?
Here.
Mrs. Morris? Here. Dr. Hartsfield? Here. And Ms. Robinson?
Here. If there's no discussion, I would like to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Seeing none, we'll approve that by acclamation. Thank you so much, Mr. Fierro. We would now like to turn it over to Dr. Bedell for the Welcome to Pitcher Elementary School presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I noticed that we have a lot of our wonderful children here ready to perform, and we are, all right. We will begin our presentation with Pitcher Elementary students' performance, and we, at this time, will have our principal to move forward with the Pitcher portion of our presentation.
Pitcher, are you ready, guys?
No.
3, 1, 2, 3.
We are the children. We are the words that make a better day. So let's start giving. Wish you make a better day. So let's you and me. We are the world. We are the children. We are choice we're making. We're saving our lives. It's true. Make a better day. It's you and me. Where you're down and out. We are your signals and all. We are the ones that make brighter days. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our lives. It's true. Make a better day. Just you and me.
Give it up for them, guys. Give it up.
Nana. You make it.
All right, we'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and start. I hope it's working. And I want to thank you for coming to Pitcher, because this is what we always say around here. We're so far out, nobody ever comes to see us. So we are so glad you came to Pitcher. We're very proud of Pitcher School. We're proud of our students, we're proud of our staff, and we're proud of our parents. Together, they all work together, and we think we have a pretty nice little school over here. So something about Pitcher that you may not know is that in 2012, it was deemed a SIG school for the state of Missouri. And what a SIG school means that it was performing academically in the lowest 5% of the state. So the SIG process is a 3-year process. The very first year after, the whole calendar year, we were able to bring what you call your annual performance report or your adequate yearly progress, up to 82%, which was phenomenal because we were way, way down here. So then the second year of the SIG process, we moved to 92.9. The third year of the SIG process, we moved to 92.9. And last year, when it was not the SIG process, it's the fourth year in, we were 100% of the points of the state dean. And of course, we don't know what this coming year is, but we're like this, and we're knocking on wood all the time, so that we will get our 100% again. But our kids, they work hard. You parents, you work hard with them, and my teachers are phenomenal teachers. And that combination shows Pitcher makes some really good, tremendous growth, and it's going to continue to make growth. One thing that we have is we have high mobility. We have a lot of ins and outs throughout the school year, and if you went from, for instance, from August of one school year and then starting August in the next school year, 60% or plus of our students are not present. They've moved. And we have going throughout the year, usually about 160 kids that go in and out during the school year. And we have that many coming in during the school year. So it's a cyclical process. So this is the reason that we have personalized instruction here at Pitcher School. And I know you all probably heard your kids talking about the tutors that they see. So I'm going to just show about 6 slides, and I'll explain a little bit about the Pitcher instructional program. That other slide I hadn't seen before. Okay. And I'm the one who made it. Where did that come from? All right, that must have come from a brochure. Okay. All right. So what you see right now, many of you will recognize Julia Meyer, our kindergarten teacher, and she's working with a small group of kindergarten students. Every day, the kids have 90 minutes of math, 90 minutes of reading. Within that, they have 45 minutes of whole class instruction, which is on grade level. And then the other 45 minutes, they have small group instruction like this. And at the same time, we have tutors who are pulling students to work on specific skills, whether it's a learning gap or whether it's something that we want to enrich. And this goes on every day, the entire year. All right, next slide. All right, this is the learning lab. There are 4 areas within this room where tutors are working. That's Ms. Parks there. She's working with a group of 4th grade students, and she's working on academic gaps. Because sometimes when you have the kids and they move in and out, they might have been at one place in the curriculum at this school, then they come over here to this school and they're at a different place in the curriculum. So there might be a gap on what they're learning. So when our kids come in, they take the NWA survey test. We could find out immediately what their gaps are, and we could get right to it with the tutoring. We also have what we call personalized learning plans for grades 3 through 6. The students, once we finish the NWA for the baseline, they set academic goals for themselves in reading and in math, and 5th grade does it in science. And then the teacher conferences with each individual child, and they talk about where they are now, where do they want to be, and the really good part of the conversation is the kids talk about how are they going to get there, who's going to help them, and then we revisit these throughout the quarter, and then we check them each quarter to see how we're going. So an example could be a child might write, well, I want to become a better reader, and then who's going to help me? Well, my teacher will help me at school, and my mama will help me read at night. That's the kind of stuff that they write on it. And I'll tell you, since we've started personalized learning plans, it's really helped move the kids forward because they take pride in their plan and they want to do well in their plan. In science, we needed a boost in our science. And it's primarily with learning gaps. We have what's called a science writing calendar for grades 3 through 6. It changes every month, and the kids, every day in the morning where it's due now time, they have just a 5 or 10 minute mini lesson by the teacher, and then they write immediately about what it is. So they might have a mini lesson about how rain forms. And then after that, then they write about how rain forms. So they're doing some science writing 5 times a week. on a specific topic, and we do tie the calendar topics into areas that we need to strengthen that's identified by the MAP item analysis or the NWEA test. And this is just, if you were to walk into 6th grade class a couple days ago, you would see this, because that's when we took this picture. This is Miss Thorne, one of our new teachers, and the kids are working independently on math, and Miss Thorne is going around the room assisting students where needed. And then, you all know Kansas City is a one-to-one school district. Our kids, they don't just use their computers for just doing independent work such as on Study Island or Cool Math or anything like that. We really do integrate it with our instruction. So here's an example. Miss Jackson's 2nd grade working with 3 of her students on an assignment or a skill to be developed at the computers in small group, individualized and personalized. Isn't that a cute picture? I love that picture. All right, that concludes Pitcher's presentation.
Don't go too far, just in case they have some questions.
We're good.
All right, so let me just say this about Dr. Howard. I really do want to commend you on your service here for 7 years, I believe. 7 years, and being able to take the school from where it was to where it is now. I like to use a lot of sport analogies. The New England Patriots, and I hate that team, but they actually have a system that just makes sense, and it doesn't matter who comes in and out of that system. The system works. And as you've heard from Dr. Howard, with the mere fact that 60% of her kids, 60% mobility rate, in essence, that does not stop them from putting systems in place and structures in place that allows for us to control for some of the variables that are out of control for kids. And so she is a model for us. We had her present this summer to principals on some of the best practices. We know that this school is also going to be a school that we will come and visit and do some learning walks around what best practices should look like and what we expect best practices to look like. So I just wanted to commend you publicly for your dedication and commitment to the children of the Kansas City Public School District here at Pitcher.
Dr. Hartsfield?
Dr. Howard, thank you so much for your presentation and for sharing not only your school but your students and parents with us. Having many of the challenges that many of our students and schools face, can you identify maybe 3 of the top components that you have utilized to deal with these challenges to allow you to become such a successful school?
The first thing is we have kids who work hard. We have parents who are invested in their children's education. We have fabulous teachers who will do anything to help move the kids along. But then it's what Dr. Fidel was talking about. We have a system in place that we continue to refine. Sorry.
You're not that loud.
All right, so we have fabulous teachers, we have fabulous parents who work hard to have their children be successful at school, and our kids themselves, they want to do well, they want to be successful, they want to meet the expectations of their parents and their own personal expectations. And the third thing is we do have a system in place that seems to be working very well. Now, we're refining it every year, but it's the personalization aspect that we look at each and every child and what can we do to move them forward. So those are the 3 things.
Thank you very much.
For the second part of our meeting for today, we will now recognize our superintendent for the superintendent recognitions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I would ask our Chief Communications Officer, Natalie Allen, to come up and present to us our recognitions.
I wish I was Natalie Lewis. So our first terrific teammate tonight is a very deserving lady. Her name is Amanda Campbell. She's a secondary counselor at Central Academy of Excellence. Ms. Campbell, please join me at the podium. So trauma-sensitive school clinician Edward Scott nominated Ms. Campbell for her execution of assignments. According to Mr. Scott, Amanda is an asset to Central Academy's leadership team. She always focuses on excellence and protects the interests of the students. Amanda demonstrates a genuine commitment to student-centered counseling services, and she uses her diverse background to support Central Academy's turnaround efforts beyond the counseling role. She has nurtured an impressive reputation among students and many faculty for being extremely knowledgeable, efficient, and pragmatic. Amanda also demonstrates superb competence in executing evidence-based, trauma-sensitive practices to promote optimum outcomes for students and to improve school climate. Principal Anthony Madry adds that Amanda has stepped up to assist as a leader across the school, including helping him with media relations. I don't know if you've noticed, but she's on TV a lot these days, which is great. She's wonderful. And she's involved in every facet of her students' lives and ties all the pieces together, which really makes her the ultimate counselor. Thank you for your outstanding service to KCPS. Next, we would like to honor KCPS Director of Finance and Benefits Services, Elaine Morgan. Elaine, please join me at the podium. Office of Student Intervention Case Manager Bridget Nicholson nominated Ms. Morgan. Last year, Ms. Nicholson was severely injured in a hit-and-run crash while returning home from a professional development session. The accident caused a concussion and limited Bridget's mobility. When Elaine learned of the accident, she took the initiative to have a case of bottled water delivered to Bridget's office to Northeast High School so she could access it easily and wouldn't have to go down to the teacher workroom. Elaine and team member Brenda Lawless then had groceries delivered to Bridget's home. Their thoughtfulness and generous gesture boosted her morale to tears of gratitude. Elaine's initiative renewed Bridget's hope in humanity. And Ms. Morgan, you are great at being a morale booster, and we thank you so much for your outstanding service to KCPS. And next up, we have our Scholar Superstars. Tonight, we are very excited to recognize a group of students from Harold Holliday Montessori School. These inspiring kiddos recognized an issue in their school's neighborhood and took tangible steps to find a solution. After noticing areas around their school being in need of care, they held a neighborhood beautification effort. They are an inspiration to us all, and we'd like to welcome Holiday Principal Kalinda Bass-Barlow so that she can introduce these scholars and talk about their successes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to stand before you as the proud leader of Harold Holliday Montessori School, where I have the privilege of serving extraordinary children doing extraordinary things every day. And I could stand up here and talk tonight, but I think you should hear from them. They're the ones doing the work, and so I would like to invite Alicia Coleman over to the podium at this time, and JC Tony to come and speak on behalf of their peers, and then we'll have everyone come up.
Hi, my name is Alicia, and I'm a 4th grade student at Holiday Montessori School. We are asking our Mayor Sly James if he can help us in our school and make a sign for us saying, "Please don't litter. This is our home and our community." Thank you.
Hi, my name is JC, and I'm a 4th grade student at Holiday Montessori School. We are trying to get attention from Mayor Sly James to make a sign for our community because people are littering on the bridge to our school. We are trying to do that by getting Fox 4 News to come to our school and record us picking up trash and talking about how we can help people to stop littering. We also could get a cleanup crew to help and pick up trash on our bridge. Thank you.
At this time, if I could have all of our scholars from Harold Holliday Montessori School to come join us up here, please. And so what they didn't share with you is these students have been going out every other day to pick up the trash. And so after, I believe, the first few times that they went out, they came back and, they're really quick to say, Mrs. Barlow, we have a plan. There's a problem. We went out there and we cleaned up everything, and people are still putting trash out. And so that made them want to take a stronger stance, and that's when they came with their plan that they were planning to reach out to Fox 4 News for the platform to be able to reach out to our community members and ask them to help join us in the effort of keeping our community clean. And so, they go out with pride, they don't complain, and they're really enjoying themselves. And not only are they working on the streets, but on the grounds of our school. And so one day they came to me, we have another plan. Do you mind if, what about the school grounds? We're noticing that some of this trash is coming from here. We're seeing our peers' name on the paper. So at that time, I said, well, what do you want to do about it? And they said, okay, well, if we can go around to their classes and ask everyone to make sure that when they get out of their cars in the morning, if they're looking around to make sure that there's no paper falling out of their cars, and then also when they go out on the playground to make sure that they're cleaning up. So they have taken this seriously, and as I said, I could not be more proud to serve as their leader. And with us, we have two of their amazing teachers that are leading them in this work. So, Ms. Rafferty, if you would stand up, please. And Ms. Gertrude Bayless, please stand up. And if you would, please join us up here, please. And they have really led the work and given the children the opportunity to look into ways that they could come up with a solution. And so we really believe in stepping back and allowing the children the opportunity to find solutions to our problem. And, by being part of the solution, we're hoping that the problem will cease. And so we do have certificates for the children. Ms. Rafferty and Ms. Bayless, would you like to come up and help, please?
Tori Bowles.
J.R. Johnson.
Xavier Doolin. Alexis Kinney.
Kamaya Hawkins. Kalia Morgan. Tyron Page. Terriana Sky. Layla Johnson. J.C. Tony. Alicia Coleman. Brandon Stanford. Dearica Harden. Wesley Jones. Jairus McIntosh. Nayan Johnson. Elena Wells. Kamaya Hawkins. Zaire Jamison. Malachi Washington. Terriana Sides. And we have one more person, J.R. Johnson. I think there was one that was made twice, so we will get one for you.
And everybody, if you'd like to come over here for a picture with Dr. Bedell and Board Chair Robinson. Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell, for your superintendent recognitions. Now for the third part of our meeting, the workshop presentation. Item 3.01, the monthly board workshop, we will be monitoring board policy 1.1 and 1.3. The chair recognizes Dr. Bedell to present the workshop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is one person I also want to recognize that I noticed in the audience today, Derek Wiggins. If you could stand and just face the community real quick. Derek Wiggins is our 2016-2017 Teacher of the Year for the entire school district. It's good to see you here tonight, sir. Thanks for coming. At this time, Madam Chair, I would ask for our presentation on policy 1.1 and 1.3, we will have our Deputy Superintendent, Dr. Marla Shepard, to come to the podium at this time.
Good evening. So tonight we have two others that will be presenting with us, and that will be Dr. Davis and Mike Reynolds. So looking at board policy 1.1, high achieving critical thinkers, you have seen this data before, so I'm going to just pass this slide up because we talked about this in the August meeting about where we stood as far as the MAP scores for our students. And so it is listed and you can refer to it at a later time, or if you have questions, we'd be glad to address those questions. Now, for our high achieving critical thinkers, I know there have been questions around the achievement gap and how much of that we are helping to eliminate. And so I have Trinity Davis who will present to you on this.
Good afternoon. Good evening. Good evening. Looking at our data, I know that a few of the things that you really wanted to see was not only the data by subgroup, but also not just how many students we have in our proficient and advanced, but how many students that we are moving out of below basic. And so this data will give you a story and be able to show you exactly where we are. You have the PowerPoint in front of you. And so just looking at where we are in this report, you'll see that as we move to, let's see, do I have a pointer on here? Yeah, okay. So you can see as we look at the first column tells us our content area subgroup, and this is all for our MAP data for grades 3 through 8. And so you'll see that all of our 3rd through 8th graders take the English Language Arts assessment. They all take the math assessment, but then in science, it is just the 5th grade and 8th grade that take the assessment. The next column talks about the number. It explains the number of students who actually take the assessment. And then the next columns are our achievement levels. So you'll see the percent of students at advanced, the percent of students who are proficient, percent of students basic and below basic. Then the next column will show you our MPI, our MAP Performance Index, and then you'll see the combination of how many students in that subgroup were proficient and advanced, top 2. So when you look over at English Language Arts, a few things, not to go through each group, but I want to point out to you a few things. We're looking at the next column that's white is the proficient and advanced growth from school year 15 to 16, and then again you'll see it from school year 16 to 17. The next column is the below basic decrease. That's what we want to see is our students moving out of below basic and then into basic, proficient, and advanced. So you'll see school year 15 to 16 and school year 16 to 17. So just a few highlights for English Language Arts. You see with our first group, the number is small. There's only 15 students that actually tested. But the first thing we see right off is pretty negative from our view because we've decreased the number in proficient advanced and we've decreased even more the following year. And then if we look at our students let's look at the black subgroup, you will see that one good piece is we've increased at 1.2% of them. We had that much growth in proficient and advanced for our students. And then looking the next year, we increased 2.5% of our students to be in the proficient and advanced category. Moving along for our black students, which is our biggest subgroup, you will see that we increased 5.2% this year of them moving out of below basic. So without that negative sign, you see we're moving them out of below basic. Small gains, but really huge when you look at that. We're decreasing those numbers. Looking at our Hispanic students, same thing. You can see that we had 2.5% of that growth before. This year we went to 2%, so we know we'd have some work to do there, as well as looking at moving them out of below basic. We moved out 4.1% last year, and this year we can see we've moved out 1.1%. So then as we move down to math, we can just look at our big subgroups, and we look at our black students. You can see that we are increasing 1.5% this year of students in proficient and advanced. And then you can see we had a big number of students move out of below basic in math from our black students. We had 8.1%. We didn't have that big increase, but we did move students out. We're not going backwards. We don't have that negative. Then going down to science, you can see that we're moving again. If we look at our subgroups, our black students, we have moved them out of the below basic, and we are moving them into proficient and advanced. So this will give you an idea of how we are starting to move students out of those groups. With the PD that we're providing for our teachers being really intentional, one of the things we saw from the item analysis is that our students, when they get to that depth of knowledge level where they really have to strategically think, relate things to the real world, that's one area where we have concerns. So that's where the professional development will need to focus on in order to be strategic and make sure we're intentional about moving these numbers. So I know that this is something that you've been wanting to see, the subgroups, and then how many students, because that's what the policy asks for, are moving from below basic to basic. And then I will turn it over to Michael Reynolds.
The microphone. Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Bedell, members of the cabinet. Today, we're going to talk about our college and career readiness standards. We have 3 different college and career readiness standards under MSIP 5. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail on some of the scoring matrices before we proceed and look at how KCPS actually scored. One thing that I'm going to lead off with is that approximately 23%, I got it written down here, approximately 23% of our points for our overall APR comes from our college and career readiness standards. 50% come from achievement. We are waiting on our achievement scores to be put through the state's calculation process, but we have a very, very firm handle on our SY17 CCR scores. So as we move forward, the first thing we will talk about is College Readiness Standard 1.3. This is our CCR, College and Career Readiness Assessment Standards. I know it's a little bit hard to see here. There are 6 assessments that make up our assessment standard under this, this measurement. We have our ACT, our SAT, our Compass, which is a community college readiness test produced by ACT. It is an ACT product. Then we have our ASVAB, which is our military entrance exam, and our ACT Work Keys, which is a workforce readiness credential. Only our graduates are factored into this calculation, so you must graduate from our school district to be factored in. You can score a 36 on the ACT as a junior, and then if you move to a different school district, you will not be calculated in our scores. Every graduate is rewarded a proportionate weight per student, dictated by their score on these 5 assessments as broken down by the score allocation that you see in front of you. Most of our students score in the 0.25 range. Our goal is to have all of our students score in the 0.75 range or above, and that will be reflected in some of our strategic plan indicators. So what we have here is we have 3 years of our CCR assessment scores broken down by our ethnic subgroups. What you see here in front of you is our point allocation broken down by 2.5, 7.5, 1, and 1.25. And the students that have no scores are students who did graduate and did not have a score on file. They did not complete this portion of their graduation requirement. When we look at this in a level of detail, under 1.3, we do see some disparities, but it's important to note that the KCPS as a whole is well within and firmly entrenched in the status calculation for the state APR, which means we will get points without moving forward. We get 6 points on this one right off the bat. Okay, we are right in the middle of the range for status on this calculation. Our overall average for the district is 49.9. Our two largest subgroups, our black students and our Hispanic students, straddle that indicator at 44.9 for our African American students and 56 for our Hispanic students. We are making growth in this. We do have some firm measures in place that we think will greatly assist us moving forward in this. I do want to stress that we are firmly entrenched in status, and I see no way we will slip backwards at any time moving forward. Our goal is to move forward, move from 6 points to 8 points, get the 8 on status, and then keep building forward.
I think it's important. I think it's important to look at this matrix and see here that for each one of these, okay, so college and career readiness would be a 0.75, a 1, or a 1.25. 0.25 does not indicate college readiness. So as you scan across, that is the score that the kid gets in order to get that 0.25. So if his or her ACT is below 18, they get the 0.25. If that ACT is between 18 and 21, 0.75, but just giving you context on how you read this indicator. As you go across, all of those scores point back on those various assessments, point back to a score that we get for students. And then there is a sum that the district is given, which you see at the top there, 810 points, which is given based on how our students did and as a whole on all of these indicators. So in order for us to move forward, so our interventions are the pre-ACT will now be given to all 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. And that pre-ACT will give us data that we need in order to prepare students for ACT. The ACT will be given to all 11th graders in the spring semester. So yes, they will take the pre-ACT in the fall semester, and they will take the ACT in school in the spring semester. Urban League has partnered with KCPS to provide ACT preparation classes. Advanced placement professional development was provided for 22 teachers in the summer of 2017. This is important because an indicator for college readiness and ACT, SAT readiness is exposure to advanced curriculum. And so as we continue to move forward, we want to make sure that we have more students who are exposed to advanced placement curriculum. So we have started that process. We trained 22 teachers, and our goal is to train more. The number of advanced placement courses that are offered has increased. I listed over on the right-hand side the courses that are offered at every school, because as a monitoring tool, we're saying that we want to increase the number of advanced placement courses. So at this time next year, we should be able to come back to you and report in every one of those situations that every one of the schools is offering more courses in the given areas. And as you look now, you see Southeast has 6 courses, Central has 8, and that's AP and pre-AP. So we want to move that number and offer more of those in other areas. And there are lots of areas that we can offer. I think we need to work with the schools to see where there's interest and continue adding classes. Looking forward, we want to continue offering more pre-AP and AP classes, and we want to offer ACT preparation class as an elective. And that is something that we're looking at doing for the 2018-2019 school year for our 11th graders. Right now, it doesn't show, but it should be on your PowerPoint. Our 2016 ACT average score was a 16.2. Our 2017 average ACT score is a 16.6. So there is increase there. And our goal, as you saw, and I want to go back to this PowerPoint, this slide, we have 18. 18 is like where we want to be ideally in order to start moving kids into that college and career readiness stage. And so right now we're at a 16.6, which is the district average. And so as we continue moving forward, it is our goal to continue moving it so that we can get that average to an 18 and get more students at 18, which means that they're college and career ready and they have more access to universities.
Hello again. I'm going to perform the same basic exercise with our next indicator. What we're going to look at here is how we break down our advanced courses calculation and how points are awarded. The 5 categories for advanced course point allocation are our AP courses, our advanced placement courses, our international baccalaureate courses, which are only present at this moment for this indicator at Lincoln College Prep High School. PLTW is Project Lead the Way. They are STEM pre-engineering courses. IRC is our industry recognized credential. This flows out of our career and technical education program, housed at Manual, and our dual credit and dual enrollment. And this is kids taking college courses at their high schools and also through Paula Schaff's Penn Valley program. So for the Project Lead the Way, the IRCs and the dual credits, you get a 0 or a 1. So a 1 basically says that you earned the IRC, you earned your certificate, or you scored a B or higher in a dual credit or dual enrollment class and received your credit, or a 6 or higher on Project Lead the Way. Now for AP, for our advanced placement and our international baccalaureate point allocations, you get a 1 if you earn a B. But then if you actually participate in the summative assessment, you have the opportunity to earn a 1.25. This gets us a lot of weight out of certain student bodies. Lincoln College Prep averages about a 1.2 per student, which is very exceptional. So that is how we score points on this. We are also, before we move forward, we are firmly entrenched in our status or points for this, for our APR, for this standard, for our APR also. So as we move forward, here's our broken down subgroups. Our goal with this is to move our students, as many as possible, out of this 0 category and over to the 1 and up into the 1.25. We have an expectation that all of our students are internally capable of taking advanced courses and succeeding in them. It is our goal to increase access to advanced courses and to increase exposure to advanced content at a younger grade, at a younger age, to prepare these students to succeed. So we do have students that took the advanced courses, that took the dual credit, that did not pass. Those students fall back into the 0 category. And our goal, like I said, or as I iterated earlier, is to get all these students able to pass and to succeed and to move forward and be ready for college and career readiness, whatever they want to do when they get done. If they want to go work, if they want to go to college, we need to prepare them for whatever their chosen endeavor is and make them fully prepared to be productive members of society. We have moved forward in this over the past couple years. You do see we have a lot more graduates right now than we did last year, which is a good thing also. So our disparities are relatively present in our subgroup populations. We do see in SY17, our black students scored, or 65% did not have a valid score in that, which is our highest of our subgroups. We do have Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders down there that have 100%, but there's only 2 of those students. Our African American subgroup is 522 students in our last graduating cohort. And then our Hispanic is our second largest cohort, who had 48.5 of their students score 0. Those are both below, or I'm sorry, that's below and above our district average. So we do recognize, and we are putting measures in place to attempt to increase access and increase performance in these scores.
Ideally, all of our students would be exposed to an AP class before they graduate. We're not there yet, but ideally that would be the case, because the #1 predictor based on research for college success is not an ACT score, it's not an SAT score, but it is exposure to advanced placement curriculum. So as we look at interventions in order to move this standard forward, we have, again, our 22 teachers who were AP trained in the summer of 2017. and offering increased offering of AP courses, and all of that is important because all of these indicators are wrapped around college and career readiness and exposure to more rigorous curriculum. And then all of our students at Lincoln Prep take an IB exam. Looking forward, we'd like to offer more pre-AP and AP courses at the middle and high school levels, and that is what we're working on for the 18-19 school year, looking more at middle school, focusing more on middle school, and making sure that there's access to the rigorous courses, the pre-AP courses at the middle school level. Offering after-school and Saturday institutes next year for the AP. You see here, when we look at our indicators, you don't get points if you don't get a B, or if you get more points when you earn at least a score of 3 on your AP exam. An AP exam is on a scale of 1 to 5, and 3 is the acceptable score for many colleges, but some, depending on which college you want to go to, a 4 or 5 is necessary. When you look at that IB exam, you would need a score of equal to a 4 or greater than a 4. So when we think about that, we've got to prepare our students. So we're looking at offering after-school and Saturday institutes for our AP and IB students so that they can. And this is a big deal because we want our kids to leave here with credits. And IB and AP or other ways, alternative ways to leave high school with college credits. All students in 7 and 8 will complete a personalized 6-year plan that has already been completed, and it will actually take effect this year. And Project Lead the Way will be offered in all 3 of our middle schools. As you look back here and you see Project Lead the Way as one of the indicators. And so we want to make sure that we're preparing kids at the middle school level. It's called Gateway to Technology at the middle school level, and as it moves to high school, it becomes Project Lead the Way, and students are able to earn the approved certification. Lastly, our college and career readiness graduate placement.
We got a good system going here. Okay, this is the third of our 3 CCR indicators. This is our 180-day graduate placement follow-up. So it's important to notate that our SY17 scores actually represent the SY16 graduating class, because we are forced to wait 180 days to see what happens to these kids, to see if they're employed, what happens to them. KCPS traditionally has done very well in this metric. We are currently at full status. We have already accomplished and met our 2020 DESE state goal. Our 3-year average is over 90%. The bulk of our placements, positive placements, come from 2- and 4-year institutions and our students who are gainfully employed. And as you look at these numbers disaggregated down by ethnicity, year by year by year, we are fairly consistent across the board. Our students get placed positively, our students do go to college, and the students that come out of our career and technical education program over at Manual High School are getting employed, and the state does consider them gainfully employed under this standard. So this is something that the KCPS has traditionally done very well in. We raised our indicator score this year to 93.3 of our graduates are gainfully placed, considered by the state. I think that's something that we should be proud of. It does not necessarily indicate that there isn't work to be done here. We can work to get our students more scholarships, better schools, stuff like that. But this is something that the KCPS should be relatively proud of. This shows if you can show some perseverance and graduate from our high schools, that there is something next for you. Employment, college, stuff like that.
The last few indicators in 1.3 engaged in the improvement of their community. The first one is about discipline. And this is our discipline report looking at our infractions from 2015-16 to 2016-17. I think this is an aggregate. However, if we move to the next page, it provides us with more of an accurate picture. We see here that the majority of our infractions are occurring with our 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. And I always like to think of data as a flashlight. It tells us exactly what it is that we need to focus on. And so when we look at this, that is the reason why we're focusing on middle school this year, because we know that if we're going to decrease these, then we need engaged middle schoolers. And so that is this is the data that is helping to drive that decision. Looking at our ninth graders, we know that we definitely need to make sure that we have something, we need to put interventions in place for our ninth graders. That is a transition year, and it is also the year where our data shows that we are losing students. And so we need to focus on that, and I think it's important. I'm glad that we actually have this information broken down to this level so that we can begin looking at what the indicators are and what things that we can do in order to correct this. The number of schools participating in character education, leadership, behavior support, and mentoring programs. Right now, 2017, we were at 100%. And that is the last indicator for 1.3. Do we have any questions?
Okay, one of the things we're also trying to determine is that is there preparation to go over board policy 1.2 as it relates to all scholars will be graduate, college, and career ready, empowered to choose their path to a successful future, because we were prepared to do 1.1 and 1.3, but the data that you presented was also over college and career readiness, which includes 1.2. So, are you okay with answering questions regarding 1.2 to include college and career readiness?
Yes.
Okay. So given that, I would just ask that my colleagues, if we can break it up and do questions over 1.1 around high achieving critical thinkers first, and then we can do 1.2 and then 1.3. Now, if that is too complicated, no worries about it, but it would be great if we kind of went in order so that we can kind of ask the appropriate question that goes with the appropriate part of the policy.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll start with Matthew Oates, Board Member Oates.
Hi. So over Board Policy 1.1, High Achievement Critical Thinkers, on the graph that we showed where we had, proficient and advanced proficiency growth and then below basic decrease. One thing, just revisiting our last board workshop around this was about how we were going to define growth going forward. I know we've defined it as either a year and a quarter or a year and a half, but also what tool we would use to do that, as we had learned that the NWEA model maybe was not the best predictor. Has there been any progress on identifying what we will use to measure growth? And if not, do we have maybe a timetable to which we could expect, resolution on what that?
Yes, I think when we talked in August, I told you that ideally we were looking for a product that actually measured where a student was and was adaptive to where that student was, and so that we could look at where they started and where they ended. And I will tell you that we have started the process of looking at different options, and we do plan on putting it out for bid based on a number of criteria that we will actually involve principals and teachers in. We'll look at what are some specs that we actually want for this product, and then we'll basically bid it, and we'll see what we get, and then we will bring those companies in. But we know that there are companies that do a lot more than the product that we presently use, and ideally we want reports that are teacher-friendly, that teachers can actually take, use, and actually see, what the result or what has happened at the end of whatever those interventions that they had.
Right, and so understanding that obviously we want to find what fits best for us, but inside of that, do we have maybe an expected timeline, we'd like to have this resolved in time for next school year?
We'd like to have it resolved actually in the spring, because we have to get training done in the summer.
Okay.
And so we're in the process right now of planning all summer training. Okay. And so we know that teachers will have to be trained on the product, so we have to get it. We plan on actually probably putting out the RFP December, January. And so we plan on having a product hopefully by March, so that we can actually begin working with our vendor on providing those professional development dates for the summer.
Board Member Morris?
I'm still processing.
Oh, okay, no problems. Anyone else? Board Member Manser?
So I'm looking at the under the chart that you've given us on the disparity data, and I think the question I have is, I know that the district, we've invested in a lot of tools. We're investing in important professional development. To what extent are we sort of looking beyond our sort of boundaries to say what bold avenues are there that can help us unpack some of the persistence in the disparities that we're seeing? The differences are holding, proportionately fairly consistent across the same population groups, and you can see that disparity, and it does look very persistent. And so clearly this is a challenge. This is something we have to unpack. I know you've seen some positive indications, but some of those positive indications they're slight, and I know we can't go from here in a heartbeat, but what do we look at that might be even a different way of structuring what happens with students such that we can really dig in there and get to the heart of it? So I know that was not articulated very well, but if you could just help me.
We have a full understanding. And if you don't answer, I will, but I know you will. So.
Yeah. So systems that move students forward quickly are aligned.
Yep.
And so one of the keys here is for us to make sure that everything we have is aligned. Curriculum, instruction, assessment, intervention, those things have to be aligned, and we talked about that a little bit in August. So part of what our responsibility is to train principals to look for that alignment, and also to train teachers on what things need to happen inside the classroom. We don't want more programs. That is not our goal. It's people, not programs. And so part of our process as we move forward is to make sure that we train people so that the work is sustainable. We're not, we don't plan on, buying some high-tech program and thinking that program is going to be responsible for the growth of our kids. What we're looking at doing, which is a little bit different, is starting foundationally with building our principles first. Everything that we're going to give our teachers next year, we're training our principals on this year, so that when they go in classrooms, they can know what to look for and how to demonstrate, how to show teachers how to get it done. Because we do expect principals to be principal teachers. If there's a teacher that is unable to teach, then it is our role to get in there and to help them. And so that is how we plan on rolling out our PD. Everything is going to happen with leadership first and then teachers next, so that leadership understands the expectation. As far as moving rapidly, it is our goal to move forward faster. And the only way that you can move forward faster is when everything is aligned. It has to be completely aligned. And so when we had our session over, I showed you all of we looked at the strategic plan, we looked at Elmore's instructional core, we looked at our theory of action for leadership and instruction. All of those things are aligned so that every action that we make, we are making sure that those actions align with those things. And all of those things are aligned to our strategic plan, so that we don't have a lot of things going on and hanging in midair, but we have things that are aligned to an endpoint.
One of the things that we also heard when we had Rice University to come in and conduct some training for our staff was that we needed to focus on a few things. Part of the reason why urban school districts, in particular districts our size, don't do well is because we're trying to conquer everything. It means we're not good at anything. And so we need to be very tight around what we focus on. We know right now that there are 3 critical things that we have to focus on that the strategic plan speaks to. One is academics. It's part of the reason why we do lose kids, because people want to make sure that the schools are academically successful. You heard a great example of that today here at Pitcher, and it's something that we're working to replicate around our school district. The second piece is we need to make sure that as we're working and we're creating a culture and climate within our schools that shows that we're valuing kids, that we have high expectations, right, that we're approaching kids from a resiliency position. We want our kids to also feel that they're in a safe learning environment, right? That ties directly into what we want to do in our goal number 2 of the strategic plan. But the third one that Dr. Shepherd's been talking about all day, and what we heard from the rights professor in their research, is that we have to make sure that our human capital is intact. We need to make sure that we have competent administrators running our schools. We need to make sure that they're trained, they understand how to go in and help our teachers. We need to have competent teachers and strong teachers in each and every single one of our classrooms. That falls directly into Pillar C within our strategic plan. So everything that we're doing now, when the strategic planner came in and he showed us how we were misaligned, we are completely aligned, and some of this stuff is baseline. Some of these things, we put some things in place last year that already started yielding results, but there are some things that we're doing right now that's baseline. This instructional framework with Elmer, that's a baseline instructional framework, but you need to have an instructional framework that everybody understands and will buy into, so when anybody comes onto our campuses, you should be able to see consistency throughout the school system and that everybody's not doing their own thing. So we know that by having this focus that we have right now, we believe that while we've been making this progress of 1 or 2 percentage proficiency points, we believe that we can move much faster than that, and we expect to move much faster than that now that we have a blueprint and a framework in place, and now that we've worked with our union partners around how we can conduct training differently. It opens up the door for this school system to really be a much more of a value add for students.
Board Member Morris.
Thank you. I'm ready this time. I have a few background clarifying questions. I may meander a bit, but I promise there's a point. First, thank you. I'm glad to see the teachers being AP trained. That's incredibly encouraging given the statistics and how we're doing so far. I saw on the pages aren't numbered, it says all students at Lincoln Prep take the IB exam. Are you saying the IB exam in its entirety or portions of it?
They take portions.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome, thank you. My next question is there a cost associated for the students when they take advanced placement or IB courses? Do this. Okay, I have my experience, and we didn't pay when I went through school.
The answer is yes. We will look into that because that's the first time we've been approached with that question. I don't know if that's funded at every school,
right?
But I think it out of school leadership, it comes out of your budget, so we do fund that. Okay, so the answer is it is funded.
Okay, so IB courses are only offered at one school, and those courses are offered free of charge to the students. Okay, that's my background. Those are my background questions. Then this is more of a process question. How is there a mechanism in place to track success maybe by classroom or by teacher or a breakout? And I wonder because it shows the students who earn less than a B don't get the 1 point. And then it goes on to show that students are taking tests. If they earn less than a B, are we still paying for a test that they're almost guaranteed to fail? Not get the 3 or the 4 points that they need would be a question. Do we have that information?
No, we don't have that right off, but we can definitely get that information. But I will tell you, we encourage all students to take the test because, right now they have an option, but I would tell you if the best case scenario is for all students to take the test because that is going to help us determine which teachers are actually effective around AP. If we're, in a lot of cases, school districts decide we're going to only go with the kids who we think can pass. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we test everyone so that we can at least be able to drill down to the effectiveness of our curriculum and the effectiveness of our teachers. If only our top 5 or 10% are taking the test, then we're unable to determine how effective is that teacher because there are chances that those students would pass whether that teacher was their teacher or not. But what we want to do, because we're an urban district, so we want to reach the non-traditional student, the non-traditional AP student. And so moving forward, we would like for all students to take the AP exam if they take the course.
And I was going to say, and that's where my question comes in. Like I understand and appreciate that I would have been a non-traditional student that sat for the exam. But then I guess looking at the cost, because 60% of our students don't pass the exam. So what does that cost look like as we're signing all of our students up to take the AP exam, regardless of likelihood of success? Is a question for later.
Yeah, well, the cost would be immense, but over the years, it would pay for itself because it would give us critical data that we need to improve our program. And so whereas, we may now have 60 to 80% of our students scoring below a 3, but as we continue to get more data and figure out how to help the students, and as we disaggregate the data just like we do on any of the other tests, we can make instructional modifications and have a plan within 3 to 5 years to continue building that program so that, and revising what we do in that program so that we can at some point get students to the 3, 4, 5. I think for us to not test a kid because they don't appear to be an AP, there's an equity and access issue there.
Got it, thank you.
And one would expect, if you are requiring more more students to actually take the assessment, your scores are going to take a hit. A prime example, we moved from just having our 10th graders take the pre-SAT in my previous assignment, and we moved to all 9th, 10th, and 11th graders taking it. We took a big hit. It was something we had to deal with the media, but if you think about how many more kids we were able to identify that actually had AP potential, because we were able to get data, and for 9th graders who would not have otherwise taken that assessment until they entered into the 11th grade, there were many missed opportunities for those kids to be placed into pre-AP and AP classes. And so we know that this focus around what we want to do with all of our 9th, 10th, and 11th graders taking ACT, pre-ACT, is not because we just want them to take it. We're going to be able to pull some data. We're going to be able to make some sound decisions on how we build our master schedules. We're going to make sure that our kids don't have testing anxiety by the time they get to the spring of their junior year and they have to take the actual ACT test because they've had familiarity. And then we know now, based on what the data is telling us, who we partner with and what we want them to focus on in helping to improve the aggregate of all of our ACT scores overall. So we're just building a foundation right now that I think is going to just significantly change expectations around what we expect and what our parents want us to do for children.
Board Member Wolfsey.
I'm going to pass on my 1-1 because between Patty, or Board Member Manser and Dr. Bedell, they answered it. But I'll go first for 1.2.
Okay, wonderful. 1.2, college and career readiness.
So you talk a lot about access, and so I want to make sure I understand what that means. I know it has to do with having the teachers trained to be able to offer the classes, but help me understand, because I've read a lot about students who, for whatever reasons, maybe implicit bias or whatever, we're not getting those students into the classes. How do our students get identified for either advanced placement classes? I think I know what it is for IB, but I need to know more about that.
Okay, so when you're talking about the non-traditional student, the way that you get them involved in AP is you look at middle school and you look at what are they doing well in. If I'm making a 90 in science or an 86 in science and I may have C's in my other classes, that is where I start. I start with putting you in that rigorous course and then providing you with the support necessary to get you through that course. Okay. And as you continue to move on through middle school, then the goal is to get you in AP biology, AP chemistry, but you always start at where the kid is successful when you're talking about a non-traditional student. Now, you always have those students who are not non-traditional, who could get in there and who can handle the rigor, and those are the kids that we should have in pre-AP classes across the board. They should be in pre-AP math, science, social studies, and ELA. But the non-traditional student, you always start where there's strength, and you build from there, and then as they build their study habits with support, then you can begin adding more classes. Yes.
So does a teacher decide that? Does a counselor decide that? Could a parent identify that?
Yes, a parent can absolutely. When I say access, that means that we're not gatekeeping. That
Okay.
means that if I'm a student and I feel like I can handle it and I want to be challenged, I can get in whether or not I have a recommendation or not.
Okay.
Now, of course, there are some that will have a recommendation, but those won't be the only ones in there. We're allowing access to all students who want to be challenged by this curriculum. And quite frankly, in some cases, we need to identify kids and let them know, hey, looking at your grades here, counselors have to be trained on this, looking at your grades and looking at your scores, you can handle this course. We're going to put you in here, but we're going to provide support for you as well.
And would you say that's a markedly different approach than what we have been doing?
And I know I have school leadership here, a couple of folks who've been here, because I can't answer that question because I don't know how kids have been identified to get into AP or those advanced classes. I just know based on my professional experience, what Dr. Shepherd is talking about is the way that I've always operated. This is about equity and access and giving kids the resources to be successful when they go in there. Not everybody will be successful, but you got to give them a fair shot. And you will be amazed at how many of these students can actually do the work once they get that first assessment back, that they believe that they can do it. So that's just our approach, and that's how we are going to operate.
Yeah, and it's important that even if a student is making a C, I mean, like I've had policy where students actually had to bring a parent in order to get out, because the bottom line is we don't want kids, because you start off, you don't start off well, that doesn't mean that you can't be successful in that course. And so we as a system have to decide that this is a priority to have students who are college and career ready. And that means that even when they start to feel, hey, I'm not making the easy A that I made before, we've got to encourage them with, by telling them the benefits of staying in this class, and then also providing them with support so that they can stay, which is a totally different mindset, especially for our AP teachers, because our AP teachers really like to get the top 5 or 10%, but as we have to shift their focus as well, because it's not about only getting kids who we feel like can, it is about equity and access.
Board Member Oates.
One question, one comment. Comment is around assessment and intervention. I know in the past we've talked about the role of guidance counselors with that 6-year degree plan that we've started to roll out. I'd love for us in the future to always include that. I'm a big fan of that. I think us being proactive with families about how the pathway to college is really important, especially given our just student population, just so people know how to get there.
So we're going to provide that for your perusal. We bought a sample copy tonight so that you can see the plan that we are working on and that we plan on putting into play this year.
So you guys knew I was going to ask.
But I will say we're really excited. Dr. Wilson, who's our new Director of Guidance Counseling, has set this up with the Naviance that we're using, and so it starts in 7th grade, and he's taken it to the point, a few of the things that we just tweaked is the students will start on the resumes a lot earlier, and the students will, we'll start the brag piece a little bit earlier as well, and then we're asking them to start doing their college options a little bit earlier. So we really want to catch them in 9th grade as much as possible, but also we're starting in 7th grade just so they can start looking at where they're going in that personalized track. So it's really exciting. He's done a lot of good work. We've worked a lot, and just seeing the updates so far have been really good.
I think it's really good, especially around like just the elective portion when you're in high school, instead of just kind of having a direction. My question, though, was around the assessments that we had under college and career readiness. I know this past year, the Missouri General Assembly decided no longer to fund the ACT for everybody. So I guess what impact, if any, does that have with the ability of our students to take that exam? Have we made any plans? I know in the daily news that we get, there was something about different school districts now, like figuring out different ways to.
We plan on funding that ourselves.
Sure.
Because we believe it's something that's important for our students, and so we plan on funding that.
Great.
Yeah.
Hold on, here's
I do have a quick comment on the ACT state census. KCPS was actually very cutting edge in this, and we instituted this about 8 years ago, well before the state did. We did all our own contracts, we pushed the envelope on this, and the state really followed us. We do not plan on giving up our junior ACT census, and we will continue to fund it.
Board Member Manser.
And bravo to KCPS for doing that, because I know that that's very expensive, and that was not always the practice in a lot of districts, that it does affect districts when you test everyone, and in the past, not everyone wanted to do that, and they fully recognized the advantages and disadvantages, so thank you for doing that. I think this is probably more of a comment than a question. I'm really glad to see, though, that we'll be talking at some point more around the counseling component. The thing that I guess strikes me in my own experience as a parent and seeing others and watching how children have matriculated through the system, I know there's a lot of focus right now on coaching at the classroom level, providing guidance, teaming within schools. I think that's very powerful. I don't have a lot of sports analogies in my back pocket like the gentleman sitting next to me, but I do recognize the value of coaching and students understanding sort of their role in this equation. And so my question is, have you all talked about to us before, or the work of creating portfolios, that as students are moving through their 6-year plans, that they have portfolios of work that are actual tangible items that contain some of these critical elements, and that they have them in a place and they can see the connection among these artifacts, if you will, whether it be the pre-ACT test is in there, the resume is in there, the ACT is in there, because just having raised my own kids, I sometimes see how kids have struggled sometimes to even make the connection between all of these elements, all these many tests they're required to take. And so I'm just wondering about a portfolio concept.
Well, I know Naviance will kind of cover a lot of that as they go through and they hit particular milestones in that software. It really is designed to keep track of their progress that they're making in those different areas. The other thing that we also have, and we need to refine this and get this blown up, but we actually have a roadmap visual that we've created. And this roadmap visual will tell you basically from 7th grade all the way through graduation what needs to happen. You wait, stop, and it's advice for kids at critical points within their careers of matriculating through our school. So I know we've worked on that. I just don't know where we are right now in terms of. Okay, and then you will all begin to see that pop up around schools where we will blow that up, and any parent or any community member can come in and they can easily see what happens once kids hit middle school. And I think we then we'll focus on that first because we got that down. That's, I'm a secondary mindset guy over the last half of my career, but then we do want to put something in place for elementary, but we know we can have a roadmap right now that takes them all the way through, and it will tell them, have you done this yet? Have you thought about your career pathways? Have you taken that pre-ACT? Stop. Have you applied for college? Stop. Have you done your NCAA clearinghouse? This roadmap will be a visual that would complement this 6-year plan. Okay.
Can you go to the looking forward slide regarding the college and career readiness?
Yes.
Okay, so the first bullet point says that we will offer more pre-AP and AP courses at the middle school and high school levels. Can you quantify that by telling us how many, by when, and at what cost?
So I think in my presentation, if you will go back to the slide that actually has assessments and interventions, it tells you how many AP courses are offered at each high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of my comments was, you see the number of courses that we have offered. Our goal is to increase that number. So when you look at Southeast right now, it has 6. So our goal is to increase that number.
To what?
We don't have a number as far as what we know. We want more. We want more than 6.
More.
So next year at this time, hopefully we have to make sure that we have people that are on the staff that actually can teach whatever those courses are. One of the things that I know when I look at this and I see that we offer world history pre-AP, well, world history is an AP course. So we'll get that teacher AP trained so that that teacher can actually offer AP world history. There are some things on here like human geography. We can offer that at the 9th grade level. And so those are some courses that we want to look at, so I can't really quantify how many everyone will receive. As you see now, everyone has a different amount, but our goal is to increase the number that they presently have, and that's the reason why I put numbers so that you can, when we stand up here next year, you will be able to quantify, did they increase the numbers at each one of these schools, and that is our goal.
Well, looking at the equity piece, I mean, is there, any disparity as it relates to who, if one school doesn't have more, are we going to increase across the board? Or are we going to look at more at one school that has less and should have more offerings there? Or are we just going to?
We're going to look at just doing some increases across the board because those schools that have 12, like when you're implementing an AP curriculum and we have to monitor that curriculum, then we don't want to take a school from 8 to 20. We want to make sure that we have increases that the kids that we plan for. So if the kid is in AP biology, then the right course after that is chemistry. So we can offer AP chemistry. And so as we build, we have to look at where there's a need and where kids are presently taking AP courses so that they can be prepared for the next course. And so I would say that each one of them will get increases, but the goal, we would like for every school to have at least 15 AP courses by the time we're done. So that is the goal. Now, 15 won't happen next year for all of them, but we do want every school ideally to have 15 AP courses.
And that's kind of what I was, wanting to get that number. What our goal is quantifiably, and then by when, so maybe we can think more about how long it's going to take us, and then what that cost is going to be in association with that. And my questions are similar to the other bullet points that are on here. And so perhaps as we move forward as a follow-up to this monitoring report, that you provide more quantifiable information in maybe the Friday update. So for example, we talk about offering after-school and Saturday institutes for AP and IB students. How many are we looking to do that with? At what cost is that going to be? We talk about the 7th and 8th grade personalized plans. It looks like we'll, have that rolled out, relatively quickly based off of the answer that was given just a few moments ago. And then the Project Lead the Way. It doesn't give us any indicator as to when that will be offered. So those are, really critical as we try to monitor so that we know what we're monitoring for and what the timeline is.
And looking forward, 18-19 school year, that's ideally when we want to offer some of these. We don't plan on making any major changes this year, but all of these are plans for moving forward for 18-19. So you should see these things happen next school year.
Thank you. Okay, yes.
Thank you for the information. I do have one word that keeps popping up in my mind is us talking about we want to increase access to and the number being offered. I would love to see a projection as we talk about how many kids we want exposed to AP, a projection on how many we think will pass AP and will, and the IB as well. I'm a bit concerned, maybe, because I agree the C in a rigorous course is better than an A in an easy course any day, to me. But I'm a bit concerned about the possibility of exposing kids to it. I don't want us to measure, okay, 100 kids or more took it, and then we're done talking about it. It needs to be who's being successful, because I think there's also a possibility for a small percentage of students to have a negative impact on being exposed to rigor before they're ready for it. And just a negative impact in their self-efficacy and things like that. So I don't know the fine line. I mean, for some students, AP won't be the right thing. The other thing is, I don't know if there's another way. I know you talked about the AP course, everybody taking it, whether or not they feel like they're going to pass it or not. So we have a means of measuring teacher effectiveness.
And curriculum effectiveness.
And
how
curriculum
well we're-
effectiveness. So I just wonder, I don't know, is there a less expensive or a different way to test that? But maybe not, so I don't know.
Let me answer that a little bit. AP and IB is not the solution to us providing our kids with rigor. I mean, there are dual credit opportunities because some kids may want to take that route, right? We know we have about 101 or so students right now that's in our early college program, and we can tell you last year that we had about 46 or 47 of those students who graduated with an associate's degree after attending that Penn Valley program. We want to see that number grow. My expectation is we go from 46 or 47 to 50 to 55. But I think we, as a school system, have to realize where kids are, what they can and cannot do at this point. We have to respect the fact that there were some steps that we need to account for when we think about science, and science not necessarily being a major focus. It is now, but you can't expect a kid to now go and take AP biology or AP chemistry. So we want to be very calculated in how we do that, and I'm not interested in inflating numbers. I don't operate like that. So I want us, we are going to make sure that the kids who need to be challenged are going to be challenged, and we want to make sure that we provide the supports for students. It is our expectation that we grow out those programs, and I was, fortunate. We had a superintendent who came in and said to everybody, you need to have 5 this year. Next year, you need to have 10. Some schools were freaking out on how we were going to get that done. Fortunately for me, I was already offering about 18 because I had a program that was a magnet program. For those schools that don't have that, we have to gradually and be realistic about what we're going to add. That may be that we're adding 2, and 2 is a 25% increase from what happened in the previous year. And so we have to take everything step by step, and then we have to make sure that we have the kids who can actually fill those seats, and that we're not in a situation where now we're having unbalanced classes because we only got 6 or 7 kids, and then you got 35 in another class. So we're telling you all what we want to do. We still have work to do around how we quantify what that looks like. I mean, that's still a process.
So I wanted to say that, to your question, that I have Andrew Urban, he's in my department, and he looks at the AP courses. He has it so tight that in January he identifies every kid now that can actually take the AP course, that also may struggle, but also he's there for support with the teacher throughout the piece. He was an AP teacher in the district before he came to the department. So we talk pretty much every day because I know, like right now, he's concerned about 2 students, and he doesn't know if they can meet it. So we meet Friday, and we're talking to Dr. Wilson to see, do we need to remove them and get them in a better situation. So we have our hands on each of them right now. He also makes sure, he also finds classes that can be created based upon a number of kids who are scoring really well in things that we don't have offered yet. So he's working very closely with Dr. Wilson, over the counselors, because he's making sure, so this is a way to make sure that we have our checks and balances of kids in there. So just to your point, we don't want to tell them no, we want to expose them to the rigor, but if we think it's too much, we're monitoring the kid to pull them out before it gets too much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Bedell, for your presentation. Now for the next, oh, you had a question?
I had 1.3. I thought we did.
Oh, okay.
We
We
did
kind
1.1 and
I did have
1.2.
questions around 1.32. Yes, I'm sorry. 1.3, Dr. Hartsfield, do you want to start us off? Okay.
I was interested in just getting a little bit of information about the nature of the activities that would put first, second, and third graders in out of school, because I saw we had over 100 in these out of school suspensions. What are some of the nature of their offenses?
We can provide you with that information. I can get that information from our
are
data
there
person.
some general things that, well, just sort of tell me what would be some of the offenses for, that would warrant out of school, because I'm trying to think about it. I mean, we have it even with our pre-K, so just generically, what are some of the level of?
I'll answer that. And we do have school leadership, if, Anthony, if you want to chime in, but I can tell you what's come across my desk. We have kids that fight. We have kids that, because of a lot of the trauma and mental health concerns that they come to school with, that causes us to be in a situation where kids blow up. We have drug abuse by students. We have weapon charges. We
were seeing these down in first, second, and third.
I've had discipline hearings for young children that brought BB guns to school, and that's a federal law that's zero tolerance around any type of weapon, whether it's a BB gun or not.
Right.
But you know, and they're not bringing it to school because it's to them it's a toy. I mean, it's not like they're bringing it to cause any harm, but there's federal laws that we have to abide by that results in these kids then being placed into success at knots. I'll be very clear with everybody in this room. I don't believe in suspending kids that young. Personally, I just don't. But I also know that until we can get a hold on being able to help support these kids from a social and emotional standpoint, and we do have a plan, and we're rolling out these trauma-informed schools, we have to do that, but we have to also make sure that there's safety for the rest of the students when those type of incidents occur. And so, but we talked about that earlier this week.
That's helpful for me to know. I guess my second question to that would be then, because I do believe that we have to provide safe venues for all of our children. And so given that we do know that at such a young age, we have children who are doing offenses that may be harmful to themselves and others, what proactive pieces then are we putting in place to be sure that the students as well as the parents are aware of offenses that could result in this, because our numbers are so high there. I'm just wondering, since we now have the documentation of what puts our children out of school at such high numbers, how have we used that data to help inform the children and the parents prior to the offenses that such actions, and make sure they know it, not just by handing them a book that might not be read, but how are we making them aware of how to stay out of those lanes?
Well, I can tell you, I know that at many of our schools, they have grade level assemblies where they go over the code of conduct, where they're talking to students about the behaviors that can ultimately get them in trouble. I know that there's constant conversation in the classrooms with teachers and students. I know when I go to schools, I specifically talk to kids, especially when I'm doing an assembly. I'm constantly talking about us being protective of kids, but making sure that kids have a thorough understanding that these are the things we simply will not tolerate. I mean, and I've done that at pretty much every single high school. This year, we're going to work on moving down to middle school and then focusing on some of our 5th and 6th graders with that conversation. But we also know, too, with some of our schools, with Louise's department, we're doing a lot of work with our trauma-informed schools. We brought in folks from Pure Edge this year to train the executive staff, to train teachers, to help our kids with coping mechanisms. So we're doing some things where we're doing yoga, and I know that's not the right word, but you know, but meditation and those mindful, yeah. All right, it's late. So, in any event, Dr. Hartsfield, we do recognize that, and I attended that suspension summit. We clearly talked about the fact that some of this stuff is punitive too. And so punitive means in basically how kids show up, and we have already made a decision on how we're going to handle them from a disciplinary standpoint. So that's something that we're working on as we continue to work with our teachers on how to not be as punitive, because some of these are level 1 and level 2 infractions that are getting kids suspended that we can easily reduce by taking just a different approach. Okay. And so those are things that we're talking about. We're working on that right now with school leadership. And if I missed anything, feel free to ask.
Elizabeth, you want to, which one? No, Anthony is the
Any
one that's
additions
actually
to
on.
that department in the Friday update would be great.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just
Okay.
wondering how
Yeah.
the data
No.
informs our actions.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
we have some data that's alarming, and I just wanted to see, rather than just reporting it, how does it inform us being able to reduce it? So
Yeah,
that'd be
absolutely.
great for me.
Yeah.
Just wanted to know.
Board Member Oates?
Yeah, just I guess thinking in the same line as Dr. Hartsfield, and just with the suspension summit we just had, and just looking at our out-of-school suspension numbers, there are things that just happen, right? Like school fights happen, and especially at ages this young, a lot of it's just due to like immaturity and inability to like deal with conflict resolution. I guess I wonder, just in this whole national conversation about school to prison pipeline, things like that, like what are we doing, I guess, different? Because sometimes, the answer is we'll just put you away for this amount of time, and then we'll let you try to come back in society with no real plan on how to rehabilitate or how to like instill with that skill with them. So
You want me to answer that?
yeah, sure.
I mean, I can tell you, we have started conflict resolution, and that's a big piece right now. We've all been trained on it. We went through our 2-day training that has already spread into some of our schools. Our intention is ultimately to become a conflict resolution school district as a whole. We needed to go through the training first as executives so we know what to look for and how we assist our building principals. And so that's something that we are looking to spread further down, which will then give us opportunities to have kids to talk through some of these scenarios with trained experts, which are the teachers and the faculty and staff, and have them resolve their differences in that manner versus just suspending them and then they come back and nothing's been fixed.
Yeah.
We do believe that it is, as a district, it is our responsibility to have some interventions in place for kids so that schools actually don't have to do it all by themselves. What is it as a district that we're doing with kids who, after they've had a series of Tier 1 interventions, then what do Tier 2 interventions look like, and what do Tier 3 interventions look like? And so there is a project committee that's actually working on that, and they meet every week. They started, actually Luis his team is actually leading that, and we are looking at what are some tiered interventions for the behavior so that we can deal with the behaviors more inside the classroom. I personally don't agree with K-1-2 suspensions either, but I believe that before you want something from a person's right hand, you've got to be able to give them something in their left hand, a way to cope and a way to deal with these things. And so through that process, the expected outcome is that there are some interventions that we provide as a district for students who struggle with behavior, and a lot of times it's just them not being able to adapt from what they're allowed to do at home to what they're allowed to do at school. And those are things, behavior can be learned and it can be unlearned. So those are some things that we want to begin working on more.
Board Member Wolfson?
Thank you. So the feedback I have on this particular policy and the measure that we tend to focus on is I want to be less deficit lens focused, and I love this particular policy, and I'm going to read it because I know it feels right now we're overly focused on personal responsibility and civility by measuring behavior and suspensions and whatnot. But there's actually two other components. Effective members of our democratic society is one that I think we can find some. I know we have things like student councils and class officers and other forms of student participation in learning about the democratic process, even to things like mock elections. I was going to just challenge us, could we add some of those as potential key performance indicators? For instance, how many of our schools have active student councils? How many of them have, current officers? Those sorts of things are measures of ways that we are meeting that particular policy. And then the last one is about students will obtain life skills necessary to demonstrate self-improvement of mental, emotional, and physical health. I think there are a number of ways that we could, I don't want to give them to you here, but I think there are other ways that we can actually identify how we're meeting that through a key performance indicator, because I know we do it. And then the one thing I just wanted to point out was that under this one, under the list of supporting documents, it does say things like list of character education and leadership development programs and the list of the clubs and activities. I think that would be great to have those as part of the documentation, and not just overall. And this goes to that equity lens part. I'd like to see them by school. And I'm just going to say from now on, that's kind of the way I view our world is, and it was because I saw it under the APIB. I kind of expect that what we do for one, our goal is eventually to be able to be equitable across the board. So that would even go for clubs, activities, extracurricular offerings as well.
I'm sorry.
I think that's a further discussion that we need to have about the KPIs here and what it is that you guys want for these board monitoring objectives.
Absolutely. And hopefully we're recording those requests of board members, because this time is designed to provide that feedback so that we don't have to revisit that in the future. But I know that our policies will be shifting and changing as we look to alignment with the strategic plan. So thank you for your patience with that. I know that there's one other question, but one thing in the Friday update, or two actually, there was a public testimony regarding restorative justice policies a couple months back. And I wonder, in terms of if there's been a review, and you can just let us know in the Student Services Department of the Friday update, if there's been any review of that policy that was put forth by Board Square during a public testimony piece. Again, it was their restorative justice policy that they're asking us to take action on. And the other piece is just operationalizing automatic voter registration for young people in our system, that when they register, enroll for senior year, if they're of age for them to be registered to vote, if that's something that we can automate for them, and thinking about if that is something that, again, we can operationalize within our system. And if now is not a good time to do that, then just kind of let us know in the Friday update if that's possible, and if so, when. Ms. Manser, you had our final question for the evening.
Final one, it's a bit of a combo question and endorsement. I really appreciate what my colleague, Ms. Wolfsey, said. And I wanted to just highlight that I particularly liked looking at the KCPS elementary survey results, because I think when I think about Dr. Hartsfield's comments about what kinds of infractions can be happening at such a young age that would result in some of the in-school suspension numbers and out-of-school suspension numbers that we see, I really want to come back and just endorse the idea that children are engaged in ownership of their school. It was really wonderful to see Holiday Montessori children up here tonight, because that really says a lot. And if we could just multiply that kind of organized leadership, and we can multiply that, 20, 30-fold, we would resolve some, not all of these issues, but young people identifying and taking ownership for their school, their community, and each other is a very powerful thing. And the sort of agency that they experience in doing that, it's really was just, I don't know if it was purposeful or just fortuitous that we had that example of young people's leadership and inventiveness and how they take, you know, a sense of belonging at their school. Very powerful. So I would hope that if we saw more of that, we would really see next year a change in these graph numbers, because I think there's opportunity here, and I believe it will impact the downward trends on some of the other numbers we've seen.
Sure.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell, for your presentation. Thank you for Dr. Shepard and your team for your presentation as well. Now for the last item of business, to present the business meeting items for the next meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. These are the items we're going to ask the board to take action on. Property tax, setting our property tax levy, Pomeroy temporary staffing contract, Pomeroy computers for teachers and students at $1.6 million, teacher and staff laptops with Apple, and then Microsoft laptops for district employees.
Right. Thank you, board members. If we can govern ourselves accordingly and ask questions to Dr. Bedell regarding those items ahead of time and be prepared for discussion and taking action on those for September 27th. If there is nothing else to come before the body, the meeting is adjourned. Do you have? Do you have a question?
You guys do open forum to the board or no?
On the last meeting of the month, we have public testimony. Okay. Thank you. Please visit the board page to schedule those with our board secretary, Sandra Fetty. Thank you so much. All right, the meeting is adjourned, and we do have closed session, so I pray that we have a quorum quickly. Thank you.